Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone 15 is just a few months away, and I have the first look at some of the design models that we have here that are used by case manufacturers to figure out what the dimensions of the iPhone will be like. We've taken a look at these year after year. Last year we took a look at the iPhone 14 Pro Max and those different samples. This year we have the 15 to take a look at. So we'll take an in-depth look, and thanks to Sonny Dixon for helping me get my hands on these. You can see here they don't look too different on the surface, but there's a lot to talk about. So as far as these go, like I said, they're not functioning, but what they are is actually samples so that case manufacturers can make these. These get produced and then they can make their cases based off the dimensions. So this year's lineup will include 4 different phones, and I actually cracked one here on the back, and we'll talk about why in just a moment. But we have the iPhone 15, the 15 Plus, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Max, and that will be the lineup for this year. However, it could be called the iPhone 15 Ultra. As far as display sizes, those are expected to stay the exact same this time around, so we'll have 6.1-inch displays on the iPhone 15 and 15 Pro, then we'll have 6.7-inch displays on the iPhone 15 Plus and iPhone 15 Pro Max. All of them this year are expected to get the dynamic island, and you can't really tell much from these samples because we have the Plus here on the left and the Pro Max on the right, and they basically look the same. So you're really not telling the idea of the overall displays from this, but it does give you an idea of what it will be like as far as the bezels and more. So we do expect the dynamic island on all of them, but we only expect ProMotion on the Pro phones again this year. Apple's decided to keep that as a Pro feature, it seems. Now, as far as the overall design, well, initially it doesn't look too different. So if we take a look at this, and this was cracked because I was trying on a case, but if we take a look at this, we can tell a few things. And I do have a 14 to compare with, but the overall outside edge is aluminum on the 15 and the 15 Plus, just like we currently have. And if I bring one in here, this is an iPhone 14. Let's take the case off of this for now, and I'll show you how they fit, or if they do or don't fit on the newer phones. But as we take a look at this, you can see that the iPhone 15 is more rounded around all of the edges. So you can see it has a more rounded design, as many people suspected, and so it's combining sort of the flat edge with a rounded design that curves to the back and also to the front glass here. So it should be a nice smooth overall sort of experience in your hand, much more similar to what we have with the iPhone 11. It's less squared off and feels less harsh to hold as far as that goes. One thing I noticed as well is it seems to be a little bit thinner this time around. So maybe it's just the way it curves around, but it feels a little thinner in your hand. And again, that could just be the curves overall. As far as button placement, they look pretty much the same all the way around here. You can see that everything seems to be basically in the same place. The same is true on the bottom, where they seem to be basically the same. However, you'll notice here that the overall opening at the bottom is larger. This is expected to be USB-C on all the different phones. And in fact, we can actually try that out, as I have a USB-C to Lightning adapter here, and it will actually fit with the USB-C side. So it's definitely a large enough opening for that, and they have to make sure their cases can actually work with that. Of course, it's stuck in there a little bit, but that just gives you an overall idea. So with the 14 and the 15, they look very similar, and the 15 and 15 Plus look very similar to what we had before, just with the rounded edges, and again, with the opening for USB-C, as they have to comply with that rule. Now with the Pro phones, that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. With the Pro phones, we're expecting some big upgrades as far as the cameras, but more specifically on the Pro Max, or maybe what will be the Ultra. We're expecting them to be designed out of titanium this time around instead of stainless steel. That would make them more lightweight. Maybe they could fit a larger battery. It would make them more lightweight, but overall dimensions should be very similar, but again, with rounded off corners like we have now. More tapered from the back to the sides to the display. Now, as far as the overall button placement, let's take a look next to my 14 Pro Max. And one thing I do think is it's slightly shorter than the 14 Pro Max, but the overall display is said to be the same. So as far as that goes, it seems to be the same width and everything there, but the overall height of it seems to be a little bit reduced. It's said to have smaller bezels, so maybe that's why. But as far as button placement, you can see the power, sleep, wake buttons are in the same place. If we flip it to the bottom, everything else is in the same place, speakers and microphone, or microphone and speakers, as well as the Lightning or USB-C adapter in this case. On the other side, again, we have volume buttons, but this time it looks to be more of a rocker instead of actually separate buttons. Early on, this was actually said to be haptic buttons, and then Apple changed it. So last minute, these are now rocker buttons. However, the silent switch is said to be a button now. And so as you can see here, it looks like it's more of a button instead of a switch. Typically on these units that we get in, there's normally a switch there, and you can see that last year. So if we take a look at the 14 Pro Max from last year, it actually has a switch there where now we have a programmable button that would be like an action button we have on the Apple Watch Ultra. So we could have a programmable button just like the Apple Watch Ultra and program it to whatever we'd like. I think that would be great going forward. One thing to note is the way this feels in the hand is a little bit nicer than the 14 Pro Max. Those curved edges make it feel really nice to hang on to. It feels a little bit thinner, but also gives you grip because of the flat sides. Now, before we take a look at the actual cases that we can put on the phone and see if they'll fit from the 14 to the 15, if you want a case for your iPhone 14 Pro or Pro Max, that's where the sponsor of today's video comes in, CaseCoo. This is the CaseCoo Magic Stand case. It comes in clear, space black, and there are new clear purple and clear black cases too. It's a protective case that adds grip and looks great, and it also has raised bezels around the screen and camera, but also has a hidden stand built in. The stand allows for a 40 to 120 degree angle and has a magnet in the ring of the stand that supports MagSafe accessories and charging. If you're in the USA, Japan, Germany, or the UK, you can pay with a new service called Klarna, which will let you try the case for a few days before paying and will give you 14 days to return it if you decide not to keep it. I'll link the case in the description along with a discount code so you can try it out. Now, I tried a 14 Pro Max case from CaseCoo on this phone. So with the 15 Pro Max, I tried this, and if I clip this into place, it looks like it fits properly with the camera cut out. However, the camera is slightly moved to the right, and also this doesn't fit properly because it's too thin. So I think the phone is either, because of those curved edges, doesn't grip properly in the case, or maybe it's just slightly thinner. The overall openings seem to be about the same, but everything else, also button placement, seems to be about the same. But the problem is, again, those curved edges, it's not as grippy, and the camera seems to be shifted ever so slightly. If we take this off, let me remove this case here. I also have an Apple case where I can show you that even more, where it just sort of falls off the phone. So I tried this out earlier. This is Apple's leather case. It barely fits in here and just kind of falls out. So I don't know if it's because it's actually narrower or it actually has no grip because this isn't sort of a squared off edge anymore. So that's something that's definitely going to require another case. And that's where I actually cracked the back of the 15 model. And the reason for that is I was trying out the case from Apple for the 14, and I thought it fit properly around the camera, but it doesn't. So I pressed down here just to make sure it wasn't me just not pushing it down properly or snugly, and it actually cracked the back of the phone. Everything else seems to fit properly as far as the buttons and the switches, but the overall camera bump looks like it's slightly shifted so that you would need a different case. I don't know if that's on purpose, but either way, it was something worth noting, and it seems like you'll need new cases if you purchase the iPhone 15s. That's been a trend for the past few years from Apple, where they don't really have compatible cases from year to year. Now, with those camera bumps are expected some new cameras. Now, not so much on the Pro phones, but more so on the Pro Max, where we're expecting to get a periscope zoom camera. So instead of having the regular telephoto zoom, we would have a periscope zoom lens where the actual module is sideways and it uses mirrors to actually reflect the image into the sensor. This is similar to what Samsung does already and others, and Apple is said to do that this year. That would mean they need to rearrange some of these cameras, where currently the ultra-wide is over here on the, well, closer to the right side, and then the two stacked cameras are the regular and telephoto. The telephoto is said to switch with the ultra-wide this year. Now, whether or not they do that in the Pro is hard to say, but with less room in the phone overall, it looks like the Pro Max will be the only one to gain that periscope zoom camera. It's also said to be 5 times or 6 times periscope zoom, so we'll have to wait and see what Apple actually says once they announce it, but at this time it seems like it's only going to be in the Pro Max. As far as the cameras in the regular 15s, we don't really expect any changes there. The overall camera layout is the same, and we expect it to basically be what we have now. Maybe they'll upgrade the sensor a little bit, maybe 48 megapixels in them. We don't know, but either way, we don't expect too much of a change there. Now, as far as the forward-facing camera, we don't expect much of a change there. Typically, Apple's done a good job with the front-facing camera. They have a 12 megapixel camera with autofocus this year. It does a great job. Maybe it will get a little better from the new processors or just be enhanced by the neural engine. However, this year, we do expect Apple to do much of the same that they did last year, keeping last year's processor in the lower-end phones with the new processor going to the Pro models. So we could get the A16 Bionic here with 6 gigs of RAM, and then in the Pro models, we could get the A17 Bionic. That's said to be nearing production or in production and is expected to have the 3nm processor. That could bring up to 8 gigabytes of RAM as well to the iPhone Pro lineup with the 15s. We would also gain Wi-Fi 6E, so that would be really nice, just an additional little bump there, and maybe some changes with Bluetooth as well. Now, as far as colors, we are expecting a new red color, maybe a burgundy or a maroon color on the Pro models. We don't know exactly what we will have, though. Apple changes it every year, and we've had, with the Pro models, we've had the Pacific Blue, Sierra Blue, Deep Purple, and they brought back Space Black. So we've had a bunch of different colors. Many people thought it would be orange, instead it was purple. So the current guess is that it's going to be a red, but we don't know that for sure until Apple actually announces it. With the regular phones, it's probably going to be similar colors, but different shades of those colors, so you can differentiate them. As far as price, some people have said that the Pro models will get a little bump in price. Now, that may or may not happen, but with Apple said to be using titanium instead of stainless steel, that's more expensive to actually mill or make for iPhones in mass production, so there definitely could be a price bump there. Whether or not it's significant or $100 to $200 per phone is hard to say, but we'll have to see what they do with that. I'd be happy with titanium, but not if it was $500 more or hundreds more. So hopefully they don't go too much price difference there, but we'll have to wait and see. As far as the battery, hopefully they'll fit something larger in here. If they are able to reduce the overall processor size with 3nm, maybe they can make more room for a larger battery. I'm not expecting anything larger, but a 5,000 milliamp hour battery would be welcome. Of course, we'll have wireless charging and more. So that's everything we know so far with the iPhone 15s. This is what they should look like, something like this with different colors, and the camera modules will usually be a little bit different than what we have here, but that gives us a general idea of what it will look like, curved edges and more. Let me know if you think it's a big enough change. As we get kind of more and more mature with iPhones, there's not a whole lot they can do, but let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Of course, I'll link a wallpaper for you in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.